out today on a Saturday afternoon. I hope you've been seeing some wonderful films as part of this year's film festival. My name is Alexe Poukine. I'm a filmmaker and a friend of the festival. I was very excited when the curator, Josh Siegel, invited me to take part in this year's Doc Fortnight and chatting to some filmmakers. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Who Cares today. It's a wonderful film by filmmaker Alexe Poukine, who is with us today to chat after the screening. She, in fact, I just learned, is returning to Doc Fortnight after screening the second feature here a couple of years ago. And so today's Who Cares? It's a beautifully, carefully considered, very sensitive documentary that considers the possibilities of role play and performance and rehearsal and conversation in growing our practice of compassion and emotional intelligence to ultimately open up an inquiry into a broken system of healthcare. And I would love to pass it over to Alex to say a few words to introduce her film, and I do hope that you stay with us after the screening, because I think it'll be a wonderful, invigorating chat. So hopefully see you all after. And please welcome Alex.
Hello. Thank you very much for being here instead of being in the park while it's sunny. I am very impressed and very happy to be here to present a film about public institutions. In this country, I think right now is quite meaningful. I will be very happy to answer your questions if you have some. If you don't have any, I will be happy to talk alone. And I hope you are fast readers, because it's a very talkative film. So if you don't understand French, I hope you're not tired, because it will be very quick. Sorry about that. I told the translator of the subtitles it was too quick, but she said people read fast. So I hope you try. Have a very good film. Thank you very much.
Alex. And thank you for sticking around. But we'll take questions from the audience in a moment, but I'll just kick things off with a couple of questions from me to you. So the most probably.
We're just switching mics.
Are we switching mics?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, I'm not on a mic. Hello. Who's that? Okay. Apologies.
Entirely new ones.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Am I on? Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Hopefully you can all hear me now. So my first question is perhaps a rather obvious one, but nonetheless, I'd like to ask how you stumbled upon this organization that conducts this program in that is so moving. It's such a moving subject for a documentary, quite unusual. And what took you to Switzerland? Alex is French and is based in Belgium. So there was a fair bit of traveling involved. So yeah, what was the impetus of this project?
First of all, I forgot to say thank you to the Mobile Fortnight for inviting me, and thank you for staying until the end. I know it was very big, we can tell you. Okay, so I will make a very long answer. Sorry about that.
No, please.
so I made a film called That Which Does Not Kill. It's a film about rape, in which I invented like a fictional device. 14 people were acting. They were like, I don't know how to say it. A woman I knew was raped 3 times by a guy she knew, and I asked 14 people to play her role, and then to tell me how it felt for them to play this role. And at the end of the screening of this film, a doctor came to me and said, "Oh, it reminds me a lot of a device that exists, and it's called human simulation." I didn't know what it was, but I was screening my film in Canada, and in North America, you are like the best in human simulation for health. So I met people there, and I knew I had to make a film about it because I am fascinated by how plain and how fake things can have can change reality, and sometimes how it's like, how to say, it's easier to get something, I mean, to say something true by saying something fake. Sorry, I'm not a philosopher, but you see what I mean. So I knew I wanted to make a film about simulation, but I didn't know how. And once, so I started to, I went to Switzerland, and I was very happy because, making a film about the hospital is very hard because you have to ask so many people the authorization to film. But like God was with me, because there was this woman in Switzerland. She knew my films. I mean, nobody does, but she knew, and she was working with simulated patients, and she opened for me all the doors of the hospital, so I could film anything I wanted, which was great. And in Switzerland, they are the best in Europe. And one day, I was there. I was in Belgium. I'm saying that I say it was in Belgium and not in Switzerland because it cannot happen. This type of thing, as I will say, that will tell you, cannot happen in Switzerland because people are very polite, but in Belgium we are not. And there was this simulation, so there are like 2 simulated patients who play the role of parents, and there are there's 1 nurse and 1 doctor. And they have to say to these parents that their child has just died, and that they want us to keep the organs for another child. And after the simulation, the nurse got crazy. She was very, very angry because she said, okay, now the simulation lasted like 20 minutes. In real life, it lasts like 5 minutes. In real life, I am all alone, and there is no doctor, because if I wait for the doctor to come, like the parents will wait in the corridor like for 24 hours before knowing that their child is dead, and my beeper is ringing all the time, and nobody gives a fuck about me, and I'm not supposed to sorry, I'm rude, but and nobody will help me, and then you're asking me and you're trying to teach me how to be like empathetic, but nobody is asking anything about how violent the institution is with me. So I thought, okay, I cannot make a film about this learning process and about empathy without trying to speak about how violent the institution is with the nurses and the doctors and all the caregivers. I told you I would be long.
No, it's great. This is great. It's, I think, gives us some important context. And I guess just following on from that, I'm curious how you know, there's a very distinct cinematic language that you employ with this work, and you have a long-standing process and a long-standing practice, and I'm curious how you developed your methodology, how you shoot, what your cinematic influences are, and whether you kind of developed something particular for this film in the way you work, or if it was different from the previous works. I know you shot with 2 cameras and over a long period of time.
I think each of my films, I should have a translator. I hope you understand me. Each of my films is very different from the other one. In this film, you know, like every simulation lasts like 20 minutes, and then the debriefing lasts like 40 minutes. So I knew that the film is 1 hour and 40 minutes. So I knew I had to edit it. So with only 1 camera, it will not work. So we had 2 cameras, and a sound engineer, and me. And so it means that, you know, only filmmakers know that this film is very hard to make, because it looks very simple, but it was like a nightmare. Because you have to, it's like a choreography, yeah, thank you. Because there are so many people in the place, in the room, that they are looking, I don't know how you say in English, you know, like your cameras have to move all the time, because if they don't, you don't know who is looking at who. Anyway, not to shoot me, or not to shoot the other camera, or not to shoot the sound engineer, you have to be very quick and to react very fast. So it was really like a dance that we did all together. And because I wanted the film to look like a fiction, like we shot, reverse shot. And at one stage, I wanted the film to start to be more like alive, and to stop all this, because I think that revolution has to be something, you know, more alive. And I wanted the film to, it's not what the film is, but I hope that the next film will be about that, how you fight, you know, about collective, and how we have to be together to start fighting. So for, like, it was very hard to shoot the last part, you know, that takes place in a workshop, theater of oppressed workshop. It was very hard as well, because we had 2 engineers and
This point you make about even in the last hour that we spent chatting, we've spoken a lot about the collective and kind of societal structures that we build. And I'm curious, in the film we see people trying to exercise empathy through performance and through role play. I'm curious, at this point, with a little bit of distance, do you believe that it's possible to increase empathy? But also, is the film in itself an exercise in empathy, because it's, you know, bringing us closer to caregivers and people facing very difficult situations? So in a way, it puts us also in, you know, in an active role.
what the film tries to say is that there is like a double bind. You know, we are asking individuals to be empathetic, but on the other hand, we prevent them from being empathetic because we create a situation where money is like the goal. And there is a time, I mean, I think capitalism is like the opposite of empathy. So we are telling people, you know, you have to be benevolent, but you have to make money out of disease, out of death, out of suffering, which is so cynical. And that's why to answer to the second part of your question, that's why I shot with 2 cameras too, because I wanted to shoot people who were listening to the simulations, to the role plays, because they are us. And I think sometimes, you know, people, caregivers, they don't allow themselves to cry or to be touched because they have a role to play, they have a function, they have to save you or to make you feel better. But when you see the other ones, who are caregivers too, you see on their face what they feel, and you see that their heart is broken. And it was, you know, it was amazing because, I mean, we all knew that we were shooting a simulation. We all knew it was fake, and we all knew that nobody would die. And like the 2 DOPs, the sound engineer and me, each time, I mean, very often the simulation was finished, and like the DOPs would put the camera down and start going to the toilets to cry, and me too, and the sound engineer was crying behind the door, and it was fake. But it was just like, you know, I had very bad experiences with the doctors, very, very bad. And that's why I made this film too, because I really hated them. Sorry, I hope there is no doctor here. And at the end of the film, really, I love them, because they had to, I mean, what they have to do, nobody has, I mean, nobody learns it. Because they have to know so many things, and they have to know so many things, you know, just like being, right, like in the emotional intelligence that none of us learn, and we should all, I mean, we should all learn things like that. You know, how you say to someone, just like, you know, like some of them, you know, you saw like the baby ones, like they are not even 20. And they have to speak to someone else, and in like 2 or 3 years we will have to say to someone, sorry mate, you have a cancer and you will die. I felt really very empathetic for them.
Yeah, just occurred to me that it's a great film to show to all the people that are trying to introduce like AI into the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Terrible idea. In any case, I wanted to ask you about your editing process and your work with your editor, who you just shared with me. You also worked with Chantal Ackermann, and also at the start you shared the story about the angry nurse, and you know I'm curious about like things that didn't make it into the film. You know, you must have had so much to work with, and how you navigated the editing process.
So we had 200, we shot for 100 hours, but with 2 cameras, we had 200 hours of shooting, which was a lot. And we decided, I mean, they were my best rushes ever. And it was just like a joke, we would say, like, we would make a series, because the rushes were so gold, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And I knew the Belgian TV would say, darling. So we had like, we had to stretch it. And we shot very bad doctors, very inappropriate doctors, who were saying very bad things. But we decided not to put them in the film, because I didn't want them to live with that film. You know, sometimes I'm a very bad filmmaker, and I don't want everybody to know it. And sometimes I know it. I think the audience, I mean, all of us, if you went to the hospital once, you know that there are good and bad doctors, or good or bad nurses. So you don't need me to explain it to you. So it was like a bit of a deontological problem.
Maybe we can see if there's questions. questions in the audience. We've got a couple. Okay.
I was wondering if you have plans to bring this to teaching hospitals or places where people are learning to be doctors, if they can see this or maybe institute programs like it, like more worldwide. It seems that it would be very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It's funny because during each training, this question is asked. And the other question is, will no, there are three questions always people ask. Will you show it to like ministers of health or the directions of hospitals? And will you make the same film in schools? So, in France and in Belgium, now people are, many medicine schools are showing it. Not in the States, but if you want me to come back, I will. Very happy. I've never been to Los Angeles, I've never been to anywhere, so I would be very happy to. Even in New York, I would be very happy to come back. Even anywhere in New York, I would be happy. It's yours.
This was such a lovely film, and there's like this through line about like trust throughout it, like trust between a patient and a doctor, between like an instructor and a student, and those sort of like breach of trust between like institutions and its workers. But I'm like curious for you as a filmmaker making this, like what kinds of trust do you need to establish with your team, with your film, and how do you like make that work?
About my team, it's very important for me to work with very good workers. I don't know how you put it, but good artists. But I work only with nice people. It might seem stupid, but you know, people I work with, they are so nice, so gentle, so soft, so clever. Clever in the way, emotionally clever, that you have to trust them. You know, like the sound engineer I work with, he enters a room, you can shoot anything. It's just like so lovely. And it might sound dumb, but it's, you know, you don't want to be looked at by someone who is judging you. So they're really nice people. On the top of that, I think I am a woman, so people think I cannot be bad. So they trust me because of that. You know, and it happened that I am French and I live in Belgium, so if I make a joke, you know there is like a racism, you know, for Belgian people in Europe. People think that Belgian people, you know, are a bit dumb. So if I make a few jokes, they think, she's dumb, and she's a woman. So, yeah, let's work with her. It may sound like a joke, but it's not. And about trust, I thought it would be very hard to make this film because all the healthcare givers that we shot, they are very vulnerable when they are learning something. But I think that the hospital, the public institutions in general, they are so dismantled now, and it's so bad, the politics, that they wanted to show people what their real work was, and that's why they were generous enough to let us shoot. So it's a question of trust, and sometimes you just hope that you're trustable enough, because they give you a lot, and you don't know if your film would be as beautiful as it should. So I just hope it is.
Thank you very much. I want to ask you
one thing, because it wasn't clear to me in the film, here in the US, people go to university for 4 years and then go to medical school. In England, they don't go to university, they go straight to medical school. Is that the case also in here? Because these, as you said, they're very young, they're much younger than they would ever be here. That just wouldn't happen, so I just wanted to understand that. The other thing I wanted to ask about that came up, à côté, basically, was people talked several times about the paperwork. We have to fill in all the forms and so on. But nobody mentioned, and here I know what that is. I mean, the case that you talked about where the woman, the patient died, and she said, I kept, calling, I called the anesthesiologist, and my mother, who was a nurse for 65 years, had a patient die in a similar circumstance. And then she had to stay, she was the overnight supervisor, until the lawyers came to the hospital in the morning. And I wondered if that was something, nobody mentioned that in the film, I don't know if that came up, but that drives an enormous amount of problems here. And it drives the paperwork ultimately, which they're complaining about. It's good record keeping so we don't get sued. And here also, the hospital will defend you if you work there against the patient. My mother said she had to have insurance as a nurse because then the hospital would turn around and sue the doctors and the nurses who work for the hospital. And I wondered if that's another aspect of this problem, but I think it's a big aspect. And did it come up at any time?
Thank you for the question. In France, Switzerland, and Belgium, where I shot, it's like 10 years in a medicine school. There is no, you don't go to the university first. It's like 10 years in the same school. And in Europe, we are very afraid to become like the United States. Sorry about that. When I took the subway here, I saw all these advertisings about lawyers, and I was just, oh my God. And that's why we are very afraid. It's because now you have to write down everything, because people are afraid to be coached. No, to be sued.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask also one more question, which is, you've just shot your first dramatic feature that you also wrote the script for. And one thing I think that's really striking in Who Cares is, of course we have some actors, but also we have, nurses and medical staff performing scenes, how good they are as they're really good, they're really convincing, and you can't really sometimes tell simulation from reality. I wondered what you learned through this film about directing actors and the nature of performance.
Coming from the documentary, when I shot this long feature, I thought that I would put many people who would play their own role. So that's what I did, and it was a catastrophe. And I'm very ashamed to say that, but I had to change many of them. I mean, it's a story about sex workers. And I thought that if you are a sex worker, you can play very well sex worker, but I learned that sometimes an actor can work and can be more real as a sex worker than a real sex worker. So it was a very, very painful lesson.
Yeah, steep learning curve.
Yeah, but yeah, I know that. So that's all I have to say.
So maybe we take one more question, and then, sorry, we only have time for one more, unfortunately, but it's,
Sorry
it's
for
been,
that.
no, that's fine, yeah, please.
Yeah,
take the
I
last
found
question.
one place, was that an acting or where the doctor cries about, he talks about a resident who committed suicide? Yeah, the question, just a commentary on that, that the doctor cries about, he mentions that one of his residents committed suicide. So that wasn't an acted out part, right? That was a real part. Yes. That wasn't a simulated, that was.
In the last sequence with the teacher, the doctor talking about residents, and how they have committed suicide, and he mentioned a former colleague of his. Is that real or fake?
It's real. I mean, I'm not saying it's fake.
It's
But
fake.
it's fake, but it's real. No. I mean, he's speaking about someone who really committed suicide because he's a supervisor.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a supervisor. He's
So
just
that was-
talking.
He's talking about, but that is a simulated event, right? It's not
No.
real.
No, the simulating event took place before. She didn't really want to commit suicide because she's a comedian. But when he said that many of his colleagues committed suicide, it's true.
Yeah, I just had I was watching this and I couldn't help but think that, there was a executive, a healthcare executive who got shot recently, you must have heard of it. I mean, the shooter is going to court now, Luigi Mangione. This happened just a block from here, at the closest intersection, just in front of the Hilton. And whenever I walk past it, I always have that thought. Because, that's one, definite, which is in the news now. But what is kind of, you covered that in your movie is the doctor committed suicide. The last time I looked at it was,
sir.
there are
We're
400,
really running out of
I
time
want to
now.
make this point because there is a movie about doctors who commit suicide and young doctors kill themselves, and the last count was 400 young doctors commit suicide in this country every year.
Yeah, in Europe too, the people who commit suicide the most, and professionally speaking, are doctors. And nobody speaks about it.
And I think that the film does speak to this in an enormously profound way, the weight that medical staff bear, and we could go on and on about this, but unfortunately we are out of time for today. We do have another screening in here, and please,
Thank you very much.
welcome. Thanks, Alex, for Thank you all for staying, and I am sorry that we've run out to take all the questions, but it's wonderful that it was such an invigorating discussion.
I think